today I wanted to go over how I landed each internship and also sprinkle around some tips that I learned throughout the way. No matter what industry that you want to go into, whether that's investment banking, consulting, software engineering, it's definitely very competitive and you need to find ways to stand out. So today, let's go over how I landed each internship and what you could do to also land internships as well. Oh, also I'm going to be cleaning my strawberries in the meantime, so yeah. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. So I didn't get my first internship until the summer of my junior year, until I finally transferred from community college, because while I was at community college, I was solely focused on transferring to my dream school. So when I finally got into UC Berkeley, my entire focus was not really my academics, it was landing a job, because I needed to figure out a way to pay my student loans off. And I didn't want to be one of those people struggling to get a job after I finally graduated. So I knew I had to get an internship, and I really had my sights set on interning at the Big Four. And I was told by my counselors, because at the time I had no relevant experience to going into consulting or tax or audit. Those are the three main functions at those firms. So I was advised to go for lower firms, but my dream companies were still to land at the Big Four. But nonetheless, I still applied to those companies. And out of the four, three of them denied me for interviews. And it wasn't until the last company, PwC, that I actually land an interview. So although not having a lot of relevant work experience and also not having a lot of club experience on campus since I just transferred, I was still able to land an interview. And with this interview, I would say it was not really that hard compared to like other interviews that I've had. It was mainly just behavioral, just trying to see if I'm a good fit for the company and also trying to express my interest for that role. So I ended up landing this offer, and it wasn't in consulting, it was in audit, and I chose audit because I knew consulting was a lot more harder to get into. So nonetheless, I ended up interning at PwC doing audit that summer. So during the waiting period of landing my internship to actually interning at PwC, I started exploring other careers within finance of what I wanted to go into. I still had an interest of going into consulting, so I had to figure out a way to get more stuff on my resume to be a competitive applicant when I would apply full-time during my senior year, when I stumbled upon a really great resource that I highly recommend to everybody. So there's a nonprofit called Paragon One. So they basically help students bridge the gap between landing your first internship or your first job and not having any experience. So usually you bridge that gap with like club experience or something to show that you have the qualifications to get that job. So this nonprofit basically helps on that process of giving someone a chance that has no experience but an interest in a certain field. So they have internships in consulting, marketing, investment banking, venture capital, data analytics, etc. So I did one of these programs, and this was technically like my second internship. And I did this over the summer while I was still interning at PwC. So I had two internships at the same time. So with this second internship, I interned at a consulting firm. I did a project for them which built my skills for like data visualization, Excel, which ended up helping me land my third internship. So during that summer, I interned at PwC and Credera Consulting, and I was able to stack my resume. And also during this time period, I decided that I do an extra semester, so I have another opportunity to land one more internship. So it's an easier transition to landing into a career that I wanted to go into. So after those two internships, I still had my sight sets on either going into consulting, product management, or staying within finance but leaving the tax/audit space. So during this recruiting cycle, I probably applied to maybe over 150 internships. And this recruiting cycle was absolutely brutal. Tech companies were doing so many layoffs. A lot of companies were having hiring freezes. A lot of companies also reduced their intern classes. So it was highly competitive. And I only ended up getting 4 internship offers after the 100+ internships I applied to. So this was a consulting firm where I would do risk consulting, I believe. So it was still within audit, but I would be in a consulting role, which wasn't too appealing to me because I just completely wanted to get out of the tax and audit space. My second offer was at JP Morgan doing a strategy role. So that was basically corporate strategy, which was pretty interesting in me, and I was this close to taking that offer. My third offer was at Goldman Sachs doing wealth management. And although Goldman Sachs, it's hard to turn that down, great bank, great name on your resume. Wealth management wasn't really something that I wanted to do, so I had to turn that one down because that's just not where I wanted to take my career. And the fourth one, which I ended up accepting, was at Uber. So I ended up accepting that offer, and it was under strategic finance. So it was a blend of finance but also consulting, which I thought was pretty interesting, and I really had an interest of working in tech, so this was a perfect opportunity. So after that recruiting cycle, I definitely would say some things that I took away from it was you have to have a tailored resume for each job that you apply to, because each job they're going to have different requirements, especially if you're applying to different roles, if that's product management, consulting, finance. All these positions take different skills, so you have to tailor down your resume to have a better chance at getting an interview. And that's just something I didn't do this recruiting cycle. I had one resume that I thought was just a one-fit-all for all the jobs that I was applying to, but not until when I started tailoring my resume later in the recruiting cycle did I start getting more interviews, and also learning that recruiting is purely a numbers game. It's hard to dictate if you're going to get an interview or not at a certain company, although you might have the best qualifications, so you can't really be down on yourself if you're not getting interviews. The recruiting cycle, it goes from fall to spring, so about 9 months, so it's a marathon, not a sprint, and you just have to keep being consistent on applying to companies as soon as the job posting comes out. So that means being an absolute fiend on LinkedIn and going on it every day to check for new job listings. And these bad boys are about ready, so let's go ahead and drain them. I really hope they're clean and don't have any pesticides on them. Okay, but let's finish the story. So, landed my internship at Uber, learned more things during my recruiting cycle that I wish I would have known, but also did some things right too, of just applying to as many places as I could and being an absolute fiend on LinkedIn. So did my internship at Uber. It was a great experience, definitely lived up to everything I expected it to, of working in tech, free meals, free breakfast, free smoothies, free snacks, absolutely amazing experience. But I still wanted to attempt maybe going into product management, product marketing, just being more on the front side of the product rather than on the back end of finance. So when I finally finished my internship at Uber, still started recruiting for roles in product, and this is where my next and also current internship comes into play. So in the prior recruiting cycle, I had an interview for Disney, and I made it all the way to the final round, but I didn't end up getting the role because for Disney internships, it's very unique compared to like other internship programs. They actually prioritize and they want you to be already graduated or about to graduate. So because I still had a year left of school, they ended up picking another candidate because of that reason. And Disney was a company that I wanted to work at, but I really didn't want to get another internship because I just needed to stop postponing working full-time and actually get a full-time job. But it didn't end up working that way, so I graduated in December. I still had a buffer period of about 6 months because most full-time roles, they start during the summer. So the product strategy internship opened up at Disney, and I reached out to the recruiter that scheduled my past interviews for the finance role that I had interviews for. So I reached out to them to try to figure out who the recruiter was able to get their contact, messaged them, gave them my resume, and boom, I was able to land interviews and end up getting the job offer. And this will be my last internship, I promise. But yeah, that's the timeline of my all-star internship career. I definitely had no idea what I was doing at first, but over recruiting cycles, I was able to learn how to recruit, how to get internships. And so I hope these recruiting tips that I gave you today are helpful and you're able to land in whatever career that you want to go into. That's really all I had to say about my internship journey. And if you have any questions, comment them down below or message me on LinkedIn. But with that, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.